Ampetiwaste Echichape Mitakuyepi. Good day, my relatives. My name is Shina Ikikjumi Ethleen Iron Cloud, two dogs. I'm from Porcupine, South Dakota, on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. I'm Lakota, and I'm also part Crow. And I was asked to share with you a little bit about self-care, wellness, healing, and what I could think of was the Lakota word Ahokicipa. Ahokicipa means honoring and caring for our own self. So a lot of times we tend to be very outward with our caring, and sometimes we neglect ourselves. And so this session, this presentation is about that. And one of the things I'd like to acknowledge is that it's not all about human beings, like having a relationship with other human beings, but having a relationship with ourselves, but also having a relationship, honoring and nurturing the relationship with those entities, those relatives that are all around us. So what I'd like to invite you to do now is I'd like to invite you to reach up to the sky. And even if you're in a building, then just imagine the sun, Ampewi. In Lakota language, Ampewi is the star of the day, and we call the sun that, Ampewi. So reach up to Ampewi, just stretch, come down, reach down to Ujimaka, Grandmother Earth, and acknowledge her healing energy. Come back up. Clasp your hands together, push out in front of you, and then stretch. Go to your left slowly. Don't strain yourself. Come back to the center. Go to the right and acknowledge Makasitomani. In the Lakota language, that means everything in creation. We are really blessed as Lakota people to understand that we are surrounded by relatives and that we can reach out anytime. So if you go out at night and you look at the Wichachpi Oyate, the Star Nation, we know that those are our relatives. If we go out during the day, we look up, we see Ampewi, the sun, we know that that is our relative. So just think about that. Whenever we're standing on the earth, then we are actually being supported by our grandmother, Uchimaka, Grandmother Earth. And whenever we breathe in the air or we feel the wind, that's our relative. So we're really blessed to have that, still have that belief. So getting back to honoring and caring for ourselves, then I would really like to encourage all of you, my relatives, to think about that. So everything that we do, we try to acknowledge and reach out to the spirit world. So I'm going to start with a wochekye. Wochekye doesn't mean prayer exactly. It means sending a sincere voice or sincere cry toward the future. So I'm going to share that now. So I'd just like to invite you to take off your glasses, to sit back, take a deep breath in your nose, out your mouth. Do that a couple times and clear your mind. Clear all the thoughts out of your mind and just visualize your own self. You are a very beautiful person. You're strong. You've been through a lot of things. You've come through a lot of things. You were sent here from the spirit world for a specific purpose. Whatever that specific purpose is your path in life. Just remember that you're a blessing, that you have strengths, you have skills, you can accomplish anything that you want to. Whatever you're going through right now, it will pass. You can come through it. You can overcome it. So I'm going to share this wochekye, this prayer now. Tunkashila na unchi wopila tranka ungeni chapi na mitakuya pilena unshiwi chakila piena Woanglake wichaku pie na wash ake wichaku pie. Wopila kanka mitakuye oyasi. Grandfather, grandmother, I ask that you have compassion for my relatives, that you give them good health, that you watch over them. And I thank you for everything, all my relations. Next slide. We all understand and are aware that we are going through a very stressful time with this pandemic. And within this time, we have lost many people. And many of us carry a lot of grief and loss because of losing our relatives or understanding, knowing our relatives that are in the hospital. For whenever we suffer a loss or under stress, then we tend to tense up. And our muscles will sometimes we'll get like sore shoulder muscles, sometimes we'll have like a backache, or we might have stomach problems, digestive problems, we might have headaches, so it's really important to move your body and not to sit for too long. That's really unhealthy for our bodies. It's important to, even if say you're working on a paper or you're reading or you're doing something that requires or that where you're sitting down, then lift your legs up and wiggle your feet, wiggle your turn your feet in circles, or reach out and wiggle your hands, reach up and stretch, do that now and then, so that your body that the circulation in your body will be activated. Really important to breathe. And in this time of the pandemic, we have this graphic that you see. It's from the Great Plains Tribal Leaders Health Board. They've come out with some very wonderful, products and programs and trainings. And I took this graphic from one of their trainings on, dealing with the pandemic, and they divided it into, like, say, the medicine wheel, the changleshka, the sacred hoop. We have the physical aspect of ourselves, the mental, the spiritual, and the emotional. And when we bring all those together, then that, is a representation of ourselves, not only our body, physical body, but our mind and our feelings and our, spirit, our nagi. So there's a lot of things that you can do physically. You can go for a walk. Even if you're isolating, you're in quarantine, then you can walk in place, while you're listening to, maybe something on YouTube, or you're watching TV, or, maybe you're listening to one of those audio books, walk in place, and you'll be surprised at how many steps, you will rack up in just maybe 15, 20 minutes. We also need to be respectful of social distancing. That's really important, because we know that this, this virus is very, very contagious, and we have to mask up. We have to really think about all of those things that are going to protect not only ourselves, but others. Particularly elders. We do have elders in the community that are at risk, and we have babies that are at risk. So we really have to be careful, washing our hands all the time, social distancing, but also taking care of our own self. Mentally, it's really important to think about how we exercise our brain. We can be reading rather than being on social media. I know a lot of people, in this age of technology, it's kind of put us at a disadvantage, because whenever we're always on our phones or always on social media, then we're not really tending to a relationship, first of all, with ourselves, but a relationship with the people in our, in our homes, like maybe our partners or our children or grandchildren, just family members that, that relationship really needs to be nurtured. So think about that, how we can really encourage that. The spiritual aspect, I'm not talking about religion. What I'm talking about is the spirit aspect of ourselves. So the nagi, according to in the Lakota language, the nagi is the spirit, and that's the core, that's the guide. So if we have a strong spirit, then that spirit we can connect with. And many of you have experienced this where you'll have like maybe you'll hear a voice in your head, and it'll kind of tell you, well, maybe you shouldn't do that. And then sometimes we won't listen to that voice, and we'll go ahead and do what we think we should do, and we end up paying a consequence. So that spirit within us guides us and can protect us. So it's really important to nurture the spirit also. And how you can do that is you can go into a room by yourself. You can dim the lights. You can burn some sage. You can close your eyes. You can clear your mind out, and you can visualize yourself, your own self, and you can talk to your spirit. Maybe there's something that you're going through, like maybe grief or loss or a relationship issue, maybe some kind of challenge. And really acknowledge your own spirit and comfort your own spirit, because only you know how you feel. So that's one way that you can tend to your spirit. The emotional aspect, I think one of the suggestions I have is to really acknowledge your feelings and to communicate that. So if something is upsetting you, then you can say, I feel upset, I feel stressed, I feel anger. Not I am angry, but I feel anger, because feelings are temporary. It's not something that's going to always be with us. I feel sadness, I feel happiness, I feel joy. So acknowledging that, really acknowledging your feelings, and that is like a healthy release, because if we hold it inside ourselves, what happens is we can make ourselves sick, literally. That we Lakota people believe that everything has a spirit. So if feelings have a spirit and we don't release them in a healthy way, then where does that spirit go? It stays within us, and it can make us literally sick. So that's something that we really have to, consider in terms of a healthy release. So all of these areas, the physical, the mental, the spirit, the, emotions it's really important to tend to all 4 aspects of our own self. The next slide, please. Part of the way to tend to ourselves, take care of ourselves, is to really look at, what was given to us as Lakota people. And for those people that are not Lakota, from other tribes, I would say that your own people have laws, values, principles that, really create a bond, within your people, but also create a path, for your people. And most likely those are ancestral teachings, like what we have as Lakota people. Wo'opre is a law. Shakoi is 7. So we have 7 sacred laws, 7 sacred spiritual laws. And whenever I say law, I really mean to highlight that they are laws. Whenever we think about laws, like say in the tribal laws, the state laws, the county laws, the federal laws, we have codes that say, well, we should do this, we shouldn't do that, and if we break these laws, then there's consequences. We have the same I think every indigenous nation has the same. They have their own laws. For the Lakota people, we have 7 of them. So you can go to the next slide. And breaking these laws, there is a consequence. And there isn't anybody that's going to come and arrest us if we break one of these laws and put us in jail, but there is a consequence to it. And we really have that, personal responsibility to uphold these laws. Now, this graphic that you see is based on the Tiikja. Ti is dwelling, Ikja is common, and it's also called a teepee. So whenever we put up a teepee, then what we're doing is we're recreating basically the laws that bind us, the laws that uphold us, the laws that keep us in balance. And if you look at the bottom there in that little green box, it says Tiopa entrance. We always face our entrance east because we are taught, one of our teachings is that the female spirit that brought our sacred chanumpa, our sacred pipe to us, came from the east. So we're always, have that opening so that we acknowledge, her presence in our life and her teachings. So these laws that were given to us, we try to live them, we try to emulate them, we try to model them. And it becomes difficult because living according to these laws is something that we choose to do, we're not forced to do. But we're given them, with the understanding that if we do live by these laws, then we have more of an opportunity for people to be happy, to be healthy, and for our people to live in balance. So if you look at those yellow dots, that represents the tripod. And there's 3 poles that are bound together, and that's the tripod. And when they stand up, the tripod, those 3 poles, those represent the Chtayatu Wichachpi, the evening star, the Wichachpi Owanji Naji, the star that never moves, but it's also called the North Star, and the Umpo Wichachpi, the morning star. So each one of these stars remind us, Umpo Wichachpi reminds us, pray every morning before you get up, before the sun comes up. The star, Umpo Wichachpi, the morning star, is visible before the sun, comes up. So that's a teaching that we are supposed to live by and supposed to acknowledge, that relationship and honor that relationship with our star relatives. Whenever the sun goes down, the evening star reminds us to pray in the evening and to pray that nothing will happen during the night, during the evening, because things can change so fast from one day to the next, even from 1 hour to the next. We always have to acknowledge that. The Wichachpi Owanji Naji, the star that never moves, if you look to the north, late at night, North Star, that's a teaching. We're reminded to pray at, whenever the evening passes into night, transitions into night. So right around midnight or before we go to sleep, we're supposed to pray that nothing happens, during the night, that everything is good. So that the tripod is stood up, and then every other pole is put on, leans up against the tripod to make a circle, and then the covering is put on. The other 7 poles that are put up, the first one to be put up is, if you look at the bottom left there, it says Wamushila, compassion. That's the first pole to be put up after the tripod is put up, and that forms the doorway. So anybody that enters this tiikcha, this teepee, is met with compassion. And what does that mean? It might mean giving people water, giving people, something to eat, or sharing what you have. All of the other laws that we have, woachwala, humility, woksape, wisdom, wachante ogunaka, generosity, Woachitkanka, fortitude, woitika, bravery, waohola, respect and honor, are laws that are designed to keep us in balance and to establish boundaries, because sometimes we, as humans, we have humanness and sometimes we tend to cross boundaries, but we have to remember, these laws. So boachwala, humility, really guards against, pride and boastfulness and, bragging about ourselves or thinking that we might be better than somebody else, or looking down on people. That humility is really important so that we can see, not only humans, but our animal relatives, our star relatives, our tree plant relatives, look at them with humility. The woksape, the wisdom, is a law that is intended to, how would you say it, to work toward. So we might get bits of wisdom as we grow older, as we grow older in years, but we also have to really work toward that. So somebody might be old in years or have many years, but they may not have the wisdom. They might still be drinking, or they might still be doing, conducting themselves in a way that's not wise. And then somebody younger might, be young, but they have the wisdom, they have to honor these laws and to honor these, these our ways of being. So wisdom is something kind of like a journey. Wachante Ognaka doesn't mean exactly generosity. The wa is a reference to sacred. Chante is our heart. Ognaka is what we hold in our heart. So what do we hold sacred in our heart? One of the things that we as Lakota people are taught is to always be generous with others. So you might see families that don't have a lot, but they'll put on a big, feast, or they'll have a, giveaway. They'll give everything away, and that what they hold sacred in their heart is not those material things, but other people and their suffering or their gratitude. They want to express that. So that's what that refers to. The woaching tanka doesn't exactly mean fortitude either. The wo is like a collective. Wachi is desire. Tanka is big or huge, but not in terms of size, but in terms of depth and in terms of magnitude. So what is our big desire? So the best example that I could think of is when somebody goes out to Sundance. So whenever they go out to Sundance and they commit to dancing in the sun, no matter what the weather is, whether it's intense heat or it might even be raining, they go out and they commit to dancing in the sun or in the elements, without food, without water. They give up their, the food. They give up their, they sacrifice their hunger, their thirst, for what? Every sun dancer has a reason for being out there. Somebody might be praying for a sick relative. Somebody might be giving thanks because somebody, maybe themselves or a relative, got well. They had a sickness and they got well. Or maybe they're striving for something that is really big, or maybe they're trying to heal from some type of trauma. So every sun dancer has their own, reason for being out there. And that fortitude is really needed because it's very difficult to dance without food, without water for 4 days. And it really tests people's desire, their what they want. Sometimes maybe on that third day they'll try to quit, and they'll be reminded by the elders there, why did you come into this circle? And they'll say, because my baby got healed. So think about your baby, don't quit. Just think about, just picture your baby. And that invariably gives them, enough strength to continue on. So that fortitude is really important. And how do we build that? Sometimes we feel like giving up. So like say in school, we might start, a class, and then midway through the class, we might think, oh, I can't do all this work. This is too hard. And we have our relatives to lean on. We have our relatives to reach out to. And I don't just mean human relatives. I mean our animal relatives, our plant and tree relatives, Uchimaka, our star relatives, so the strength can come from that, whenever you're really facing a challenge, you're building your fortitude whenever you do that, whenever you get through that challenge. So that's an example of that. The woitika, the bravery, that can be expressed in a lot of different ways. When we think about our buffalo relatives, how they will turn and they will face any type of challenge, any type of threat. They protect their young at all costs. That is what we as Lakota people are supposed to follow, their teachings and model our behavior after theirs, so it takes bravery to do those things, to face challenges head on. Wa'ohola is respect and honor, not just respect and honor, people or, our relatives, the star nation, the animal nation, plant nation, Mujimaka, but also ourselves. We really have to look at how we respect and honor our own self. So this is an example of kind of like a framework on how we can keep ourselves in balance. Just because we don't live in teepees anymore doesn't mean we can't take the laws and the model that was given to us, and we can apply this not only to ourselves. This can be an individual, this can be a family, this can be a community, this can be a school, or a program. It's really up to us how we want to put this into action, and we have a responsibility to do that, because these ancestral teachings that were given to us are, they're given to us for a reason, not just to exist in a PowerPoint slide or in a, poster on the wall, but to actually put them into action. So, and apply them to ourselves. Next slide. I think that was the end. I thought I had a thank you slide, but I don't. I would just like to say to all of you that are listening, that are viewing this, that we, all of us are, struggle. Everybody struggles. And I would like to say that, really encourage you to think about that we are here for a purpose, and that we really need to honor and care for ourselves, particularly in this time of the pandemic, but at any time also, So with that, I'd like to just share, a wocheke, a prayer for that you can say. For the males, you would say Tunkashima Unchi, grandmother, grandfather, grandmother, Oma Kiayo, help me, Mitakuye Oyasi, all my relatives. For the females, you would say Tunkashila Unchi, grandfather, grandmother, Oma Kiaye, help me, Mitakuye Oyasi, all my relatives. So just those 4 words, Tunkashila Unchi, Oma Kiayo, for the males, Oma Kiaye, for the female speech, Mitakuye Oyasi. You're saying a whole lot of things. What you're reaching out to is the grandfathers and grandmothers of the spirit world, and you're asking for compassion, you're asking for help, and then you're acknowledging all your relatives at the end. So with that, I just like to say, Wopila Tanka, thank you for your kind attention, and I appreciate being asked. Hechegla, Mitakuye Oyasi.